The Diamond, a place where legends are born, where hitters drop 400-foot bombs, where pitchers throw heat. The home of peaches, yard goats, trash pandas, and sod poodles. This is Ballpark Nation, your home for baseball from sea to shining sea. Now your host, the guy who could never crack his high school starting lineup, Jim Christopher.
Hey everybody, Jim Christopher from Ballpark Nation, and I'm hanging out in beautiful Segra Park, home of Columbia, South Carolina's Local 9. I'm sitting in the bullpen boxes right next to the home squad's bullpen. Like literally, there's a pole and then there's dirt. And then it dawned on me that the thing I'm doing right now, as I wait for the game to start, is the same thing I used to do when I was a little kid and I would go camping and I would get a mason jar with holes cut in the lid. I'm just looking for some fireflies. And welcome everybody to Ballpark Nation. I'm your host, Jim Christopher. We have got a lot of fun for you today. We've got so much fun that we can't even fit it in a regular Star Destroyer. We need one of those like super Star Destroyers that you see at the end of Return of the Jedi. Because not only are we hanging out in Columbia, South Carolina, home of your Columbia Fireflies, but it's Star Wars night. As I was writing this episode, I was reflecting on Star Wars and where it is today and how it's such a ingrained part of our culture now that, again, you have it at sporting events. And one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, I graduated high school, and then for the majority of that time period afterward, Star Wars was 3 movies. It was A New Hope, and it wasn't even originally A New Hope. It was Empire Strikes Back, and then it was Return of the Jedi. And then we get the prequel films, and they have a mixed review, and then we get to the Disney Plus stuff, which, you know, we get 3 more movies. So now we've got 9 movies in what they call the Skywalker trilogy. You've got 2 spin-off movies in Solo and Rogue One. And then you have TV shows like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then you've got animated shows like Star Wars Rebels, and you've got The Bad Batch and The Clone Wars. Basically, Star Wars has now become not just multi-generational, but multi-generational. But it did dawn on me that there's going to be generations of kids who didn't experience particularly the first 2 trilogies first. And I know we usually do our silly stats, weird words, and new rules at this time, but we're going to talk a little Star Wars instead, and we're going to talk the machete cut. It's a way to watch some of those earlier films that really maximizes the drama, the tension, and reveals secrets to the movies in ways that are unique and not sort of just left there to be stepped over, okay? So basically what I do whenever I'm watching the first generation of Star Wars movies is I will begin with Rogue One. I do that for a lot of reasons. One, Rogue One's badass. I like the idea that we do get an idea of why exactly the Death Star does blow up, but I watch it most importantly because that last 5 minutes when we see Vader come through, it answers a question that, I'll be honest, bothered me since I was 10 years old. And it was because, I guess you could tell I was going to become a filmmaker, because I was like, wait a minute. But when Vader boards the blockade runner at the beginning of A New Hope, everyone's terrified of him, but because Obi-Wan Kenobi was played by Alec Guinness, who was so old, the lightsaber fight is not dynamic, and so you're left to wonder, why are they scared of this guy? None of that fear felt earned. Match that with Rogue One when he pins the dude to the ceiling and cuts him in half, and absolutely you get an idea of just how vicious Darth Vader has been. So I go Rogue One, then I go A New Hope, and then I go right into The Empire Strikes Back. So pretty normal progression. I do that because the secret of Luke's parentage is still one of the biggest dramatic moments in the history of cinema, and you get it to its full effect, especially if you don't know already. Then I get tricky. Then we go into episode 2 and episode 3. I skip one for a lot of reasons, but most importantly, there is no narrative thread that really begins in episode 1 and ends in episode that continues on, right? It's pretty self-contained as far as major dramatic threads. Plus, Padme doesn't meet Anakin when he's like 9 and doesn't feel so child molestery. There's a lot of weird relationship dynamics in Star Wars. I also like it because we also learn who Luke's sibling is in episode 3, and frankly, that reveal is way more dramatic than when it happens in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Because in Return of the Jedi, it almost feels like, oh yeah, by the way, as you're on your way out of your X-Wing, this thing is the thing that happened. So if you're completely ignorant to the idea that he had a sibling and who that sibling is, the birthing scene actually is a really good dramatic moment to reveal that. One of the other things that it does is it makes Han Solo being stuck in carbonite feel longer. He's not just stuck in there for 15 minutes of screen time. By watching this, he's now stuck in there for about 4.5 hours of screen time. So by the time you get to his release, as an audience member, you're way more invested in seeing him get out. It's a lot less like, oh, a thing happened and now we've immediately fixed it. So that's a big reason why I watch them in that order. I did show an actress who used to work for me. She had never seen them, so I showed her the machete cut this way and asked her some questions. And the final question I asked was, what did you think of Jar Jar Binks? And she said, who? Now, normally, if you've been watching this show, you know that I won't say formula, but kind of the order of episode content. Now we'll be starting our coverage of the Fireflies and talking about all the great things that are happening out there at Segra Park. But I kind of wanted you all to experience a little bit of what it's like to go to a baseball game with me. So first thing I'll do, of course, is I will pack my outfits. I make sure I have a different hat for each day. I don't wear hats back to back. That might seem weird to you, and to which I say, shut up. It's not weird at all. I think it's perfectly normal to make sure that I have a different hat look every single day. And then Jessica and I will hop in the car and she will hit play on the Ballpark Nation playlist. And you're going to start by hearing the old late 70s, early 80s song, Go Go Astros. It's so kitschy and delightful if you haven't heard it. I miss when teams had songs. And then, of course, you'll have Center Field by John Fogerty. You're going to have The Road to the Show from Luke Berryhill, who we'll hear from later on this season. And then you're going to hear some songs from a band called The Baseball Project. The Baseball Project is essentially a supergroup. They are a group of musicians who came together because they all love the greatest game ever invented. For almost 20 years, they have been writing songs about baseball using fun lyrics, historical references. Some of the songs are very tongue-in-cheek. Some of the songs are very serious and real reflections on the game, all set to some pretty amazing rock music. It's actually pretty badass that it exists, and I'm really excited that I found them relatively early in my career of doing this show, because sometimes that drive between Spearfish, South Dakota, back to Denver, Colorado to catch a flight can be really long and really lonely. Sometimes I listen to romance novels in the middle of the night to keep me up, but that's a whole other conversation for a whole other kind of day. The band's repertoire, like I said, is an homage to the history of the game, some of the great figures of the game, and I was very excited to find out how they got together. One of the things, the best thing about baseball is it does bring people from all walks of life together. We've talked about it before on the show, where you can have conversations at a ballpark that might be hard to have other places. I can, believe it or not, be a little socially awkward, but I'll talk to anybody at a ballpark, whether they like it or not. But I was curious as to what made members of REM and the Dream Syndicate come together to write songs about baseball. So, I asked them. I come from an indie film background, so meeting anybody that liked sports, first of all, was always random, and then to like baseball. So how did you guys all figure out that you liked baseball? Everybody that's in the band.
That's a good question, and you're right. Very often, especially I think maybe when you and I are first doing our thing, there wasn't that mixture between the arts and sports. They were almost seen as enemies of each other. I mean, and Peter and I talked about this a lot. How like, when we were coming up as punk rocker, counterculture, whatever preceded punk rock, lovers of noisy music and that kind of thing, the jocks were the enemies. But the reality is, all of us, almost everybody in the band, we were all sports fans growing up. I was actually a sports writer before the Dream Syndicate. That was kind of my goal in life. In my teens, I wrote for not only school paper but regional papers in LA, covering high school and college football, baseball, basketball, track, the whole deal. So that was being a musician and being a guitarist and a aspiring songwriter seemed like a dead end to nowhere back when I was 15, 16 years old. I figured, I know what I'll do with my life. I'll write sports for whatever newspaper will have me. And that was the plan until punk rock and eventually indie rock and all that kind of stuff knocked that idea off the axis. So I was a sports fan from way back, and I can say that in this band, in the baseball project, 4 of the 5 of us walk the walk, talk the talk, love baseball, live, breathe, and die baseball, all day long, obsessed for fantasy baseball. Myself, Linda Pittman, my wife, and our drummer, Mike Mills, and Scott McCoy. We are, you can geek out on baseball this all day and all night. Peter is the lone member of the band who's not a baseball fanatic, but just by virtue of hanging out with us so much, I think he's either grown to appreciate the game more or hate it more, because he hears plenty about it in the band every day.
Sometimes I dream of Willie Mays and tell him I was there. Sometimes I dream of Willie Mays.
What I think is interesting about the band is it's the same band, but there's different sounds. Like sometimes you just have different vibes from song to song. I think that shows to the level of creativity. Some of it's very tongue in cheek. Some of it's pretty serious. And so, Mike, I'm curious as to how you guys decide, first of all, baseball is a game that's 120 something years old. How do you decide what we're going to write about? And then also the tone you're going to take when it comes to that?
Well, one really great thing about this band is there's no end to the things to write about. Like you say, the game's been around for all those years and so many stories. So, when we're all writing in our day job bands, writing for regular stuff, you try to think about, what am I going to write about now? I've written about, love and death and romance, and I don't know what else to say. Baseball, just stick your finger in the baseball encyclopedia and point to a random page, and you got another song. So we that's one fun thing about this band, that the subject matter is so focused. But like you say, we have different approaches to it, and some of our songs are just nerdy stats songs. That we actually have a song called Stats from our third album that just lists. Just as the lead up track in that album, just lists important stats in baseball with no explanation at all. That's one side of what we do. That's really just for the diehards only. That's a perverse little number. But then on the other hand, a lot of the songs we do are just really jumping off points, metaphors for subjects we might have written about in other bands. A lot of the songs are about regret and envy, and the moment where you had it all and lost it, or the moment you lost it all and got it back again, or all those kinds of things that you might write about in any band. And that's why I always tell people, you even if you don't like baseball, there's a lot to get from this band. There's no test like the movie Diner. It's talking about movie stuff. There's no test to be a fan of this band. You can love baseball and you'll probably get a little more out of it. You can not care whatsoever and still be moved by some of the songs. And we intend them that way. I think, because otherwise we'd be a novelty band, and I don't think we are.
Listen to the music and read books about its makers. I read books about baseball, the swingers and the takers. But what I love even more is pouring over box scores.
Most baseball fans I know, they remember pain way more than they remember success. I mean, is that kind of something that attracts you as a writer, to be able to talk about, Disco Demolition on one hand funny song, but on the other hand, like really just kind of a sad whole situation.
Yeah, in fact, that's the song I wrote for the last album, and that was a tough one to write because there's so much, and this actually that gets to one of the fun challenges and hard things about writing songs for the baseball project is when you're writing about a thing like Disco Demolition or about a particular player or a particular moment or something like that, you want to say so many things about it and you want to explain it all and make the point you want to make, and you've got three verses in the chorus to do it. You've got to at 4.5 minutes, and you've got to get it all out there. In Disco Demolition, I wanted to talk about how crazy that was and explain the song to somebody who may not know about it, but also had a point to make, by the end of the song. And it was, it's funny and weird and unexpected at the same time. It's not maybe a great, proud moment in history, and it signaled a lot of other things about, about people's attitudes towards a lot of things at the time that weren't very pretty. So it goes from being ha 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 Disco Demolition, they set the field on fire, to ooh, what was happening there, all in 3 verses and a chorus. It's a fun thing, about the about this band. I wrote a song called Harvey Haddix on our first record, where I had the challenge of talking about Harvey Haddix of the Pirates, who threw a 12-inning perfect game and lost the perfect game and the game itself in the 13th inning, to tell about the game and then list every single pitcher who had ever thrown a perfect game up to that point in time, 2007, and make them all rhyme. It's like, what are you going to rhyme? Len Barker, how am I going to get that in there? Oh, I know, he played for the Jays, the Blue Jays, and Catfish Hunter played for the A's. There's my rhyme. It's getting all this stuff in there. That's part of the fun about this band, especially when we all, we tell the stories we tell because we love the game.
There's a famous quote by Buck O'Neill in Ken Burns Baseball. He talked about how everybody said the game was dying, and then I heard a sound like I never heard before, and it was Babe Ruth. And then people said the game was dying, and then I heard it was Bo Jackson. And basically the players keep bringing it back. Who are some players now that, whether they're Yankees or not, that you think, okay, that's going to be the superstar of the game that's going to keep this game going for the next, 5 or 10 years?
So many great young players right now. It's exciting. I mean, it's really, I love watching Ellie De La Cruz play. He's just so much the speed and the agility he has, and
yeah.
I mean, it seems like more than ever there's a lot of great, and I'm of course going to draw a blank now. I'm thinking about the great, really young players coming up right now, and it's exciting. I don't think there's any short. I love watching Paul Skeens pitch. I think it's great that to see him doing what he's doing and the poise he has on the mound. So yeah, left and right. On the Yankees, I love watching Anthony Volpe, and I think he's hasn't quite fully come into his own yet, but I think he's a great player. That's going to be exciting to see. If he's not going to be the next Jeter, he's going to be something remarkable on his own. So yeah, I don't think I'm not worried about the future of baseball. I think it's going to be fine. I would like the Ghost Runner to go away, but that's a small quibble.
John Rocket was a dumbass. Ty Cobb was filled with bile. Sammy Sosa had his court. Joe Negro had his file. Yeah, it's on fire. But someone loved them all. Someone loved them all. 'Cause they played baseball.
We get to do a lot of fun stuff, and we've all had various versions of really great rock and roll careers, from REM obviously having their incredible success, to even me and Scott and Linda slogging it on the indie rock circuit and getting to play all over the world and fun shows. But for all of us, there's still that giddy excitement of walking on a baseball field that we get to just it just happened just last summer. We played in Washington, D.C., and the Nationals has come out and sing the national anthem, as we have done probably, I don't know, maybe a dozen times at games. And every time we do it, it's such a funny feeling that there we are, just walking out to the mound like we own the place. Like here we are, just there's a game happening here. We're just going to step out here. Oh, there's our spot, there's our stage. And it's still kind of a funny thing that we get to do, and we things like that.
Does it make your inner 12-year-old come out? Like, are you just...
Absolutely. And I think if I can be so bold, I think that the most inner 12-year-old of the band is Mike Mills. He just he still goes to every game with a glove. He wants to catch that foul ball, at every game. So he will always be there, like hoping for the foul ball. And yeah, we all get pretty excited about that. I think the wildest thing we've ever experienced, we played at a Twins game, Twins White Sox game, maybe 5 or 6 years ago at Target Field, and we were playing on the party deck, kind of out there, in center field. And our job that day, our assignment that day, is we were playing between innings and during pitching changes. And so we would play everything for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And they told us, the thing is, in the monitors, is we'll tell you when you have 10 seconds left. So wherever we were in the song, mid-verse, mid-chorus, whatever, we knew we had to wrap it up. It was kind of a challenge. So it wouldn't necessarily end, at the end of the verse or at the end of the chorus, something like that. It's like, we're going to end after the second line. 1, 2, 3, which was pretty fun.
I guess the question you ask every creative, what's next?
We've made 4 albums, and we're going to keep making them because we got more to sing about. We always told, with the ongoing thing in this band, we always talk about our dual dream record is called Baseball After Dark. And it's going to be all the senior, really, really, let's say not quite X-rated, but maybe, R-rated.
Can one be called Jeter's bags, the little gift bags they used to give out?
I think you just wrote one of the songs for the album. I'll give you credit.
There you go. Dateline 2024, Columbia, South Carolina. Home of the Gamecocks, Aziz Ansari, Gabrielle Union, and one of my favorite bands of all time, Hootie and the Blowfish, and the Columbia Fireflies. That's right, one of the most iconic and fun and colorful minor league baseball teams out there, and we were out to Segra Park to check them out. The Fireflies had a really crazy history of getting here. It was like many real love stories began with loss. And that loss was when the Capital City Bombers flew off to Greenville and became the Greenville Drive. And then there's an infestation of sorts when the Savannah Sand Gnats move in. And look, honestly, can you root for the Sand Gnats? Really? But all you need is some fans and a vote. And next thing you know, you actually get a pretty ingenious name, the Columbia Fireflies, a well-oiled baseball machine. And unlike, like the Death Star, there is no vent that you can just blow the whole thing up. This team creates so much fun, so much goodwill that you need more than just a nation to hold it. So I guess for right now, we'll be Ballpark Galaxy, or Ballpark Galaxy Far, Far Away. Either way, we have a lot of fun coming up because it was a great night at the ballpark. What I love about baseball, particularly at the minor league level, is really and truly anything can happen. It's hard to predict. Baseball there's so many different ways a game can go that it's never the same thing from one night to another. And part of that on the minor league level is creating a fan experience that if a fan comes back to multiple games, they get something new and they get some fun and they get some of that energy. And the cliche is that the energy starts from the top. But when it comes to Columbia, the energy starts from the top in the form of team president Brad Shank, who leads from the front and does a great job of really bringing that team together to put on a really excellent show for their fans.
Yeah, so I've been here since actually before this was even built. So I've been a part of building this ballpark and the whole team coming about in Columbia, going back to really like late 2013. And so we started looking into this and saying, okay, what is this going to look like as a part of this Bull Street district, and looking at construction plans. And then I actually moved here in July of 2015. We were about halfway done with construction at that point, and then opened up in April of 2016.
One of the things I wanted to ask him, because anybody that's had their house remodeled knows it's a super normal thing. It's always on time. It's always under budget. There's never anything that goes wrong.
There was literally a natural disaster that was the beginning point of that, because we came through, started in January, and then we got to October of 2015, and then they had a 1,000-year flood here in Columbia. 30 inches of rain in 24 hours. I mean, it was massive flooding all over. Right behind us, the field at that point, they had it, dug out, and they were getting ready to do some of the sub drainage and everything like that, but it was just clay. So for literally a month, we were a month ahead of schedule going into that. Literally for a month, they couldn't get on the field and do any of that field work. So all of that month that we were ahead, we were now right even. And then coming up to the last night, I mean, the Budweiser bar, for instance, we changed the plans on that in January before we opened in April. And so that was literally, they were putting that thing together literally 2 weeks before the season started.
Brad is not a guy who leads from the office. He is out with his team. He is working. And I was curious, if you've really been with the Fireflies since the beginning, what were some of the really cool things you've seen as this team has come together?
Yeah, I mean, the big things that I would say are the Eclipse probably sticks out the most. Largest crowd we've ever had.
Oh, wow.
We caught wind. Our marketing director came back after a meeting with some people from the city, and some folks in the city of Columbia realized that we were going to have this total solar eclipse. We were in the path of totality. And she came back and she's like, it's going to happen at roughly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We need to have a game that day, and we need to play at 1 o'clock and stop the game so that everybody can come here and watch the eclipse. So we did it. We passed out, the glasses at the front gates, and everybody came in. Over 9,600 people here. It was a Monday in August. It was hot as can be, as you can imagine, and it was just packed. Literally every area that you could be, people were sitting on the concrete out in the concourse. And so then we get into it, and the crazy thing is, we had talked with both coaches. They had a plan, so they didn't throw starters that day. They were throwing 2 guys kind of piggybacking.
Got it. Yeah.
And we got to the point where it all looked like it was going to work out great. We were going to, finish an inning, and then they would stop play. Everybody was going to be good with it. And then one of the umpires made a call that our manager didn't like. So Jose Lahair, out of the dugout, goes out, big argument, and he gets tossed. So we think, okay, and we're looking at our watches because you can't really back up a solar eclipse at that point. So he comes back into the dugout. We think we're good. Goes back out, goes after him again, yelling at him again. So we're sweating it at this point. We had a guy from NASA that was going to narrate it. And we had all this stuff going on. So finally he gets off the field. We come out, get the last out, get everybody off the field about 3 minutes before we needed to. So it was one of those things, just perfect timing. And then the funny thing was when it actually happened, he came out of the locker room and ended up laying on the grass on the field with the other players right next to the umpire and watching the eclipse. But surreal. I mean, just absolutely surreal. We lined up Dark Side of the Moon, the song, so it hit right at the pinnacle of it. And I mean, I will never forget that feeling of that day.
Honestly, that's a great story. It sums up so much about what I love about minor league baseball. And you'll see this a little bit later on when we caught a Salem Red Sox player after the game laying in the grass waiting for the fireworks to start.
There was a long period of building trust, and I honestly still think we are. We're still the new kids in town compared to USC that's been here for hundreds of years, and some of these other things that have been in the community. So we always look at it like we've got to earn it every single day. And one of the ways that we actually, when we first we had just hired, our first group of staff. We brought them up here, and they got here right at the beginning of October, literally right before the flood. And so the flood happens, we didn't have offices at that point. Everybody was working out of a retail store. And
Wow.
So the flood happens, and we said, hey, let's do what we can, because at this point, calling people about season tickets and that kind of thing was not something that would have been a good idea. So we actually called the people who had already purchased season tickets and checked on them. Did you guys have any damage from the flood? And then we sent our folks out, and they just help with cleanup. And so really, I think that set the tone, because that's what we want to be about. We want to serve our community. This is a ballpark that was a community built ballpark. It's owned by the city. So we have, a responsibility to be good stewards in the community and continue to get out and do those things. We started our reading program right off the bat to try and get those literacy rates up. We always are working with youth leagues and different people around here, just so we can keep kids doing the things that they should be doing instead of doing the things they shouldn't, and hopefully building a stronger community for the future.
Now, I'm a kid of a certain age, so I grew up with the Fly Girls. on In Living Color. And between Fire Marshal Bill and Damon Wayans, I'll be honest, the Fly Girls is the reason I was watching. But I was curious when Brad mentioned the Fly guys.
One of the things that we've done off the bat right here is, with all of our on-field promotions and things, we have a lot of fun with those. The Fly Guys is one of the, the most popular promotions we do, where we've got our 4 staff members that go out, they drag the infield. We took something that, is a necessity. You need to do it during the game, but it's kind of boring. So we said, well, let's have 4 guys choreograph dances, and they'll stop on the first base side and the third base side, and they'll dance and shake their what. And, it's something that just people have latched onto and they have a lot of fun with. And then, we've been able to have some fun with some other brands too that tie in with the community. So this year we came out with the Carolina Grits. Grits are, ingrained in the South like nobody's business. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Grits are probably being served at restaurants here in Columbia and throughout the state of South Carolina. So we had some fun with that. We have, it's a more, our logo is more iconic. So we wanted to go more of a cartoon kind of fun route. So we've got little, helmet full of grits that has the pat of butter on it and the spoon for a bat, and we let the fans name him, and his name is Butters, which is fitting. So Cornelius was the other finalist, but we figured
It's a little long.
Yeah, a little long.
Yeah.
So we have that, and now I think I'm guessing on this, but I think we're the only ballpark that serves grits every single game now. So we've got a grits cart that is open for every game, and that's been a big hit as well.
Well, kiss my grits. See what I did there? Yeah, because they have an identity, the grits. Now, grits are a big part of Southern culture, and so is Southern hospitality. And I wanted to ask Brad, how much of that is the basis for how everyone from the ushers on game day to the top of the front office behave when it comes to dealing with their customers?
Well, I mean, it's ingrained in everything that we teach to our staff. And one of the things when we do our orientation, because, it takes an army to run this place on a busy night, over 200 part-time employees once you get into these big nights with 6,000, 7,000 plus people. And the thing we always tell them in orientation every year and when we're training them is 95% of the people that walk into here are not going to interact with me or one of our other full-time staff members. So they are an extension of our staff, and they have to live up to that standard. And so we've always just hammered that home right from the get-go. Whether it's greeting everyone with a smile or making memories for people. If somebody, we always tell people, if a foul ball comes over and lands by you and you pick it up, give it to a kid, and just little things like that. If somebody drops something on the concourse, they're holding 2 beers and they stumble and they drop their beer, get them a free beer. Like, we don't want people to walk out of here with that experience or that memory of something bad happening. We want it to be something good.
But like I said, it was Star Wars night. I walked in and it could have been Coruscant. It was great. It was so much fun. And they really did Star Wars night right. First of all, you had cosplayers, so you're getting a lot of fun pictures. I did the whole, I always like to pretend that I've been arrested by a stormtrooper, and then I send it to my boss and ask for bail money. Been doing that for about 15 years. I'm not sure if she's tired of it yet, but I don't know. But you also get really cool alternate jerseys. And this year, the Fireflies, I think, really did one of the best you've ever seen, because they embraced the nature of the Force. Because the front of the jersey is Anakin Skywalker and his Jedi glory before he turns to the dark side. And of course, on the back, in red, is Darth Vader. And so you're getting that duality, 2 sides of the same coin, 2 sides of the same jersey. So I thought that was a really, really clever approach. But like I talked about, kids growing up, getting into Star Wars before the game, they had a Jedi Academy, and you had a bunch of kids running around swinging lightsabers, learning how to lightsaber duel. And it was okay because Anakin wasn't there, because we all know he likes to kill children. Everything is always top-notch at Segra Park. You've always got great merch, you've always got great food, you've always got great drink. And if you go back to our very first episode of this show, we promised that we were going to use the ice cream batting helmets for more than just ice cream. So when we went to Columbia to see the Fireflies, we put shrimp and grits in that bad boy, and it was yummy. If you haven't had it, recommend it. I know some of you Northerners are going to be very Joe Pesci about what is the grit. My cousin Benny. It's good. Give it a shot. Be open-minded. That's all I can say. To wash it down, I had a large pina colada in a pineapple, which I can honestly say I'm not ever sure I've ever done that before. But I'm here for it, and I will absolutely try it again. Now, we promised that we were not done with Brad, and we're not. And now we're at the end of the game, and you'll notice that Brad is again out here leading from the front. That's a term I've used a couple times in this episode, and it fits him perfectly. It's something that dates back to my Army days, where really good leaders are not going to have subordinates or team members do things they are not willing to do. So now you're seeing Brad run around with a t-shirt cannon, firing up the crowd, getting the crowd ready. They're doing their guess what song, who's got more spirit. I mean, he's just got the crowd going while the fireworks get set up. And I must say, as somebody who used to be responsible for controlling indirect fire, he's pretty good with that t-shirt cannon, that high angle thing. Not too shabby. So believe it or not, sometimes shooting the ball game can be awkward. People want to know why you're there. You'll often have people walk through and then they'll do this thing where they stop and then they're not afraid what to do, and now you're just stuck there, and it's like, just do something, please. It was cool though, when I was working down on the other side of the net on the field, to see so many of the fans kind of embrace the camera, have a good time, and you just know it was their good time carrying over from Segra Park to the end of the night when we got to the fireworks. So I really appreciated everybody playing to the camera. I think we had like a beer bat lightsaber fight going on, which I'm here for. It was really just a lot of fun. I have fun doing it. It makes me feel a bit more creative with how I'm shooting the thing. So I appreciate all of you who actually played along. And then as we get ready to wrap the night up, we get one of the cooler traditions in minor league baseball. And this is where the Fireflies come out. And so what they do on firework night is they will bring all the lights off, and then everybody lights up their cell phones. So it looks like you've got a bunch of little fireflies all through the stands, and then they will count down to the fireworks. And the firework display is nothing to sneeze at. It's huge. It must be nice to get to have fireworks all the time, because down here in Austin, Texas, things are a little dry, so we might get them 4 times. Now they do drone shows and stuff, which are cool, but there's something about seeing and smelling the fireworks that makes it feel like summer, makes it feel like a baseball game. And again, we had a great time. I gotta thank John Kostis, the voice of the Fireflies. He's become a really good friend of ours, for setting all this up, giving us the best time. And I wanna thank Donnie and Rhonda for giving me a spot to camp out at their season tickets. These two are some of the best ambassadors that baseball has to offer. I don't know why Major League Baseball or minor league baseball is not paying them to go from park to park, because that's probably the best way to sell the game, is just those two. So again, we had a great time in Columbia. We will be back soon, but I want to make sure that you add it to your list whenever it's time for you to jump in your own bullpen cart and hit the road.
And now on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, Jim Christopher.
That does wrap us up here on Ballpark Nation. We are going to say goodbye to everyone. We want to again thank Brad and John and the entire Columbia Fireflies team. They did just an excellent job of putting that event together. It's definitely worth your time. We'll be back next week. We've actually got a very special episode. So until then, I'm Jim Christopher, and we'll see you at the ballpark.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, 'cause it's root for the home team. They don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the